10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, Episode 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your 10-Minute Jazz Lesson. The goal of this show is to give you a short and concise jazz lesson to work on for the week and teach you the concepts of every lesson step by step. My name is Nick Manella, and I'll be guiding you through these lessons complete with audio examples and downloadable PDFs that you can find on our website. That is www.10minutejazzlesson.com. That's the number 10, minutejazzlesson.com. You can also find our blog and monthly giveaways at our website, so go and check it out today. This podcast will be designed for all skill levels, so make sure you check back every week to see if our episode is geared towards you. All right, I'm super excited to bring you the first episode of this podcast. Let's jump into today's lesson. Today we're going to talk about the quintessential jazz form, the 12-bar blues. More specifically, we're going to talk about utilizing thirds and sevenths over the blues. These are the two most important notes in the chord because they define the quality of whatever chord we are playing over. The quality of the chord simply lets us know what kind of chord it is. The third tells us whether the chord is major or minor, and the seventh tells us what kind of seventh chord we are playing over. Once we start to delve into these thirds and sevenths, we discover all kinds of relationships between them, and that will help our improvisation and voice leading. I want you to start with something simple. Figure out what the third and seventh are over every chord contained in the blues. When playing the blues at its most simple form, it only contains 4 different chord changes. We have the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the minor 2 chord, and the 5 chord. Simply by figuring out the third and seventh on each of these chords, we start to understand why these notes are so important. I want you to pause the podcast right now and figure out the third and seventh of every chord over a B-flat blues. The best and most common key of the blues is B-flat, and that's why I'm having you work over this key. Did you notice anything? The relationship between many of these notes is a half step between the different chords. This could do a lot for our concept of voice leading, which means using the closest note from where you are to a new note when the chord changes. Now we are going to come up with a couple of exercises that make these thirds and sevenths stand out in our minds as the most important notes. These exercises are fairly simple, but I promise you they accomplish a lot when it comes to this concept. Exercise number 1 has you playing the third and seventh on every chord as whole notes. This is simply to imprint on our minds what the third and seventh are on every chord in the blues. Here's an example of exercise number 1. Now, it's important to realize that when I give you an exercise that's all whole notes, I really want you to come up with your own rhythms, but still play the notes that I provided for you. The reason that I've written them as all whole notes is just to simplify the exercise and let you be a little bit creative with your own rhythms. Here's what exercise number 1 sounds like as I would play it. Exercise number 2 introduces you to the relationship between the thirds and sevenths when the chord changes. The majority of these relationships turn out to be half steps. This is really useful for our concept of voice leading, which we will explore in another episode of the podcast. Here's exercise number 2. Exercise number 3 takes the previous exercise one step further. Now we're using both the third and the seventh in each measure, but still practicing our voice leading concepts. What I want you to pay attention to is the relationship between the notes every time the chord changes. That is really what we are after in this exercise. Here's exercise number 3. These are simple but powerful exercises that will set you up for success on the next episode of the podcast. Make sure you eventually memorize all these exercises presented here. Improvising requires you to have the concepts memorized and ready to be played at a moment's notice. Remember, you can find downloadable PDFs in your particular key at our website, so make sure you go and grab those. That's about it for this episode. I really want to thank you for listening to the show, and tune in next week when we take this concept a little bit further in part 2. I really hope you've gained something from this lesson and it will help you become a better improviser. If you have any questions or you would like me to explore a concept on the show, please email me at 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. That's the number 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. If you enjoy these lessons, please consider donating to the podcast. You can find the donate button on our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com. If you want to keep the show up and running, please send us a few dollars. And if you would like an easy way to donate to the show that doesn't cost you any extra money, please use the Amazon link on the front page of our website. If you've got to buy something anyways on Amazon, by using our link, Amazon kicks us a small amount of money and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Good luck with this material, and most of all, have fun. Don't be afraid to reach out with any questions, or if you need further clarification on anything that I've presented today. I would absolutely love to hear from you. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.